Good morning or afternoon, depending on which side of the coast you're on, I suppose. So welcome in Social Connecting, Clint Skutchan with T360 again. Got a great panel today, and today we're talking about to pivot, or as I always want to go to the Friends pivot, or not to pivot. And so we're talking a little bit about some of the things I've been seeing floating around out there in terms of approaches to strategic planning and leadership changeover. And so we brought in three folks to join us here today. Got Rebecca Grossman from Scottsdale. We've got Trisha Thomas, who's out on the coast, the left coast, I guess, as they say,
coast, yeah.
at Bay East. And then Gene Millman, who's recently been hired as the CEO a little bit closer to where I'm at here in Colorado, at RE Colorado. So greetings, good morning, afternoon, all those things. How are you guys and gals?
Awesome.
Good. Yeah. Glad to be here. So thanks for the invite. I appreciate it, Clint, to be upon putting in with these esteemed other panelists you have here. So I'm very honored to be here.
I only invited you in so that I wouldn't look so bad next to these ladies.
Well, I don't know if I'm helping you much. I don't know, but whatever. So
the bar's been set low here. We're good, Gene. Well, Rebecca, we were chatting before we got going here, and I think, Gene, I know you were recently the same, but you took a little time away. But time away these days is a little different now in this environment where we're constantly connected. What was it like it's nice to get away, Rebecca, but still you feel so connected?
Yeah, we were chatting about with the pandemic and our leadership. It's a 24/7. They're, picking up the phone and texting their thoughts and ideas. They're sending their emails, and they don't really have normal working hours. And in some ways we don't either. I've really flexed out my staff. Some of them are better because they have an infant at home, for instance, and they're better working from 1 to late in the evening or whatever. So, but I think it does create some stress that I feel like I have to respond even if I get a text on a Saturday night. So I did take 2 days vacation. We were chatting about that, and I still could not unplug. I tried as best I could, but unless you broadcast the fact, don't bother me for 2 days, and you really don't want to do that either. You're just going to have to juggle it. I did try to leave the phone we rented this teeny little house out down in the southeast Arizona, and it was beautiful, but I tried to leave the phone inside and just walk out and sit and watch the mountains and the woods, and that did help.
Gene, were you able to, I know, because you were you're a new guy transitioning in and you're supposed to be away, but I assume everybody's excited to get you on board and get you going. Were you able to set it aside while you were away?
I mean, to some extent, I think, I think all of us probably have those type A personalities that as much as we try to, want to unplug, it's like that magnet keeps going to our phone to say, well, just let me quickly check this, and just make sure. So definitely, I was, I guess, in touch. I did try to disconnect as much as I can. We went back to our home state of Delaware at our family's beach house that we're blessed to have for my wife's family. So we were able to do that. I think it's probably helped a little bit when I transitioned into the kind of staff side of the MLS, being a practitioner, broker owner for 32 years. I understood nights and weekends that you don't get those off. You are constantly checking things. So I think that's helped me in the transition, especially during the pandemic a little bit, understanding that these normal hours that you think you may have once had are not there anymore with that. Again, I think all of us that are on this call today is, we have a passion and commitment to our subscribers and members, and we want to do the best for them every day. And we understand that sometimes this comes with the territory that we have to do that.
I'd ask the same of everyone that's joining us, and thanks for coming in this morning and this afternoon. Feel free to use the chat amongst yourselves. Have you guys been able to get away when you get away, or are you getting stuck in the place and having to answer all the questions 24/7? So feel free to have your own dialogue in the chat section. If you have questions for any of the panelists or myself, we've got the Q&A, send those, and then we'll make sure to address those as we go along. Trisha, are you the lone wolf who's not gotten away, or have you been able to get away this summer too? It's kind of weird because usually this is that time of year where everybody's getting away before school ramps up and gets started and all those things, but it's obviously a very different year altogether. Have you been able to at least get some time?
I'm in the fortunate or unfortunate position of having so much vacation time accrued that I can't accrue anymore. So I've started taking time. I actually had a week in Tahoe, and I've got another week in Tahoe coming up. But for me, it's really no different. It's just that I have a nicer place to work. So, but
Yes.
which is still, you know, like Rebecca, you were saying, it's a change of scenery. So it's not dissimilar from like I want to normal pre-COVID PC. It's, you know, I was hearing from leadership or staff when things were happening on the weekends anyway, or in the evenings, and that's kind of my preference. So yes, I've got away physically, but I haven't got away from the screen or the mobile devices. But I'm fine with that. It's nice to be able to look out on a lake while I'm putting out a fire back home.
That is true. I mean, it at least gives you that serenity now moment when you can look out and see the surroundings, for sure. Let's transition into kind of the primary topic here, which is we're also getting to that time of year. Not only are kids going back to school and all that, but we're in the kind of cycle of association and MLS planning of, you know, the changeover, and then thinking about the upcoming year and thinking strategically. Before we talk about kind of how you've adapted, I'm curious as to what's your, and I think Tricia in particular, I know we've done panels together talking about strategic planning, and Denise was commenting about she loves your background, that you've got your mission and all that. And you're really great about living and sharing your strategic planning. So maybe for those who haven't seen, or just to give us some context, what's your general approach to strategic planning? And you can even roll in there kind of the year over year changes in maintaining consistency between leadership changes.
So everything revolves around the culture and our culture statement. And that's, I have two things behind me. I have our mission statement, which is to help our members succeed as real estate professionals. And then on my screen, it looks like it's on the left side. That's our DNA strand, and that's our culture. And it says, we love to delight, we promote compassion, we're transparent, we listen, then we act, and we value results. So that's the strategic plan. Everything is built around that. So looking forward, nothing is going to change, because as long as we are in alignment with what the culture is, which aligns with our values and the mission statement and the vision statement, it provides a consistency, which I think the industry really needs. Our members need it, our staff need it, leadership needs it. So we spend a lot of time with the listening than acting. And if there's anything different this year, it's that there is more emphasis on VOC, voice of the customer, voice of the member. So we just finished our membership survey, been doing the surveys annually for 15 years. So I've got a lot of historical data.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I've got like 3 and 4 years in some cases. 15 is amazing.
You know, for any AE out there, if you haven't started doing a member survey, I highly recommend it. In the old days, they used to cost thousands of dollars. Now they don't. There's best tool I've seen is SurveyMonkey. And the subscription is pretty inexpensive, like anywhere from $99 a year to, I think, depending upon how big the association is and what you want to do, maybe $1,000. But for $99, you can get a lot of information. And what that lets us do is listen to our members, because I'm not a realtor, never been a realtor. Jean, you probably have better perspective. I might think, oh yeah, members want this, and they come back and they tell me something completely different. Yeah. And it's a prophylactic against a president coming in saying, I want X, Y, and Z. And you get to say, well, no, we listened to our customers, our members, and this is what they're telling us. There's also something that we find valuable, and that's the ability to cross-tab information. So I can slice and dice and I can pull out, what is it? What do the brokers think? What does the new agent think? What does, what kind of business are they doing? What are the specific needs that they have? So you don't have to do a one size fits all. You can craft a member experience based on that voice of the member that you get through the membership surveys.
Yeah,
So
I love
that's
the culture piece. I'm a big fan of that, as you know. Yeah, we share that DNA. Rebecca, for you, what's been your kind of general approach to strategic planning up to this point? And is it similar where, you need that consistency and that focus when you have year over year kind of changes amongst your leadership?
Yeah, we were fortunate. We went through a complete overhaul last year of our strategic plan. We pretty much tossed everything out and started from scratch. And I love Trisha's culture statements. And I think you did a session on that last year. And
yeah.
I absolutely loved that and love what you're doing. Ours, I had a president who was very determined to use a particular facilitator, and I'm not going to name names. And it was good and bad. There were some things that came out of it, and a lot of it, and it's interesting now when you're looking back, it was really focused on person-to-person engagement, events, and opportunities for networking. We had in there that we were going to create a Starbucks-like vibe for our members in some of the space that we had available, beautiful space, and we were going to build it out to, like a coffee tables with little places for people to interact with each other and to plug in their devices and wonderful Wi-Fi. So, we had stuff like that in there. And then, but what we did also have, which was the beauty that I'm experiencing right now, is we got away from committees. We decided, and this came from my president actually, and God bless him, he spent an entire year during his year attending every single committee meeting. And we didn't have that many committees. We only had 7 or 8.
But it only takes a few to become overwhelming, as we all know.
He was determined because he had some discussions with me where I was frustrated. I was saying, the work is not getting done. They're getting stuck in the weeds, and they're, different people are showing up each time and diverting it in a whole new direction. So, but until he witnessed it firsthand, and during strategic planning, he said, we have got to make a change. And so we got rid of all of our committees except for budget and finance and government affairs. And we did a structure, which is flash engagement groups is what we call them. And so in September last year, we put out a call to all the members and we said, what's your interest? And we had every single task that needed to be accomplished in the strategic plan delegated to what we called an interest group. And so when something needs to get done, we pull that list. From that list, we ask for volunteers, and they are assigned to a flash engagement group, and then they just do that task. And I can just tell you an example. For instance, we have a sustainability initiatives in our strategic plan, and one of them was to create some videos. And when COVID came around and we saw that a lot of people threw sustainability out the window, everything's disposable, everything's, and my group that is focused on that became very concerned. So we tasked them to create a video to show how you can still have sustainable practices even while ensuring health standards and showing property, protecting your clients. And so in a week, that video was done because it was flashed. If it had gone to committee, I'd still be here waiting on it. But that's just an example of what we've done. But truly, when we had to go back, and we just did this, to revisit our plan, now it's a 3-year plan, there were probably, I'd say 25 to 30% of the initiatives cannot happen, will not happen in this environment. But there were some things that had been accelerated because of COVID. For instance, we had a lot in there about online learning. Well, we are working with a commissioner who does not like online learning. And so because of COVID and her ability to grant special permission, those kinds of initiatives, boom, got accelerated, got done. So there were some good things that have come out of this.
For sure. Gene, so you're, specifically in the MLS space, and strategic planning mimics, I think, from what I've seen, far more business planning in the MLS space than it does in the association. But in terms of your experience with that, what's been your approach in the past relating to strategic planning for MLS?
Yeah, and again, I love Trisha's culture. I think that is it's one of the cornerstones and pillars that I think we all want first. And I love the flash groups, Rebecca. I love that kind of feel too, because we all know that in many times we get paralyzed by committee and we just don't get the things done and with that. So again, I know that just from RE Colorado, they did a strategic planning, I think it was last fall, if I'm not mistaken, in that range that they had done some. And I'm going, kind of going through that now and reviewing it with our executive team, and we'll be looking at those things. Yeah, I would say it is probably more of a business plan. I think you're probably right a little bit on that, Clint, that you're looking at. And, I think, my experience has been is that, I think we always still have that core value about, how do we enhance the consumer experience? And that's regardless if you're an MOS or an association, we're all looking to make that experience better with our subscribers and members. And so I would say that when you look at the business plans, probably more for MOS, there's definitely that part, but it probably revolves around technology a little bit more. How are you going to deliver a product to the subscriber or member that helps them either have ease of doing their business every day or ease of being able to collaborate with that consumer in some way? And I think in some ways the MLS is probably, I believe, has a little bit through some of the business planning and strategic planning. You're seeing that the consumer is becoming part of that now, because it's not just B2B like it used to be. I think it's a little bit of B2B to C now that we're looking at. And so I think that's been a part of probably a new feel of the strategic plan or business plan, is how do you incorporate that and help that collaboration, not only with your subscriber members, but also their interaction collaboration with the clients that's there. Definitely COVID. I think there's, as tragic as this pandemic is, what I would say, I always think there's some silver linings to some things. And I think from our strategic planning, things that maybe we had put out that maybe we thought were a year or 2 years away, kind of what Rebecca said, online training. Well, one of the advantages is that I think the development curve of getting things out shrunk so quickly, that we sit there and a lot of times we look at things and we say, God, I want that change, and we hope it changes in 2 years. We hope it actually changes during our strategic planning. We had to make changes within days. Things changed that quickly for us. In all of our industry, regardless of what aspect you were in, we had those changes. And so I think in some ways, some of the strategic planning and some of the bullet points we may have had, actually, this was a silver lining to get them done in a quicker fashion than we ever would have done before. And I think also through this time that we're dealing with, and we've definitely heard Rebecca and Trisha talk about listening to the members. And I think that I think we all try to do this. I know it's something conscious at every meeting that I go into, whether it's with my team or meeting with one of our association's executives or meeting with a big broker or small broker, any of our brokers, is do you listen to understand or do you listen to reply? And I'm hoping that we have started to listen to understand and really hear what they're saying to us. And I love that Trisha had 15 years of surveys there. I love that. And that but it's different because I see a lot of people, they listen just to see how fast they can reply to you.
I'm sorry, what?
You got me on that one. But I think what this has done through this piece is that we've started to really, I think, listen more to understand what our consumers need, but also our subscribers need that as well. So I think I think there's some very positive things that have come out through this, pandemic that we've all had to deal with. And, I think some of the challenges we probably have had is, make sure that we can still have that engagement with people in a way that we can still bond with them. And I think one of the big things, and I was thinking about this is when you reached out to me, Clint, was I love we're doing these things now. Before, let's be honest, we did them at the lobby bar. I mean, we were at the conferences and we were doing them there. And, we probably got a lot accomplished there, but I love that this sharing and collaboration I've seen over the past 6 months between all of our industry now. I think it's brought us much closer together. I really do. I'm so proud of a lot of our industry, of how we've reacted and stuff, but I love that we're doing this, and I hope we never stop doing these type of things.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this too. I still miss lobby bar hugs and actually seeing people. So
Absolutely.
We've alluded to it a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
I must have missed that, Clint. We're at the lobby bar. I'm sorry.
Or at the bars afterwards. I don't know. That's a different story, though. Those are different conversations. So I do miss those as well. We've talked a little bit about the things that have been accelerated. And Rebecca, I heard you say 20 to 25% has been set aside with our strategic plan. And so what I've heard a lot emerging over the last few months is this conversation that's bubbling up of leadership who's frustrated because they weren't able to accomplish things. And therefore, we either need to extend durations or we need to pivot our strategic planning altogether. And this is just this guy, and maybe this is why I'm sitting on the side of the fence that I'm on right now. That gives me great concern that what we're talking about is we didn't accomplish what I wanted, not we didn't accomplish what the organization needed. And that's a little bit of a concern that I'm hearing. And in particular, especially as it relates back to the strategic plan itself. And for me, the kind of the core of that is the why you exist and the core competencies that go along with that. I think that we've been able to really immerse ourselves into those things that matter most over the last few months. And there's not a need to pivot, but a need to intentionally evolve what we already knew we were good at. And so I wanted to kind of get you all's thoughts on this now moving forward. I am starting to hear these rumblings of, well, we've got to change or we've got to extend. And that gives me great concern because as much as I believe that culture is built on a strategic plan and a strategic approach, I think the underpinning of that is consistent processes. And so I'm a little concerned that we just start altering things and pivoting too far. Anyone want to jump in on that one? Rebecca, go ahead.
All right, so I may ruffle some feathers here. I've seen some of the comments on AEI year-round. I've seen the discussion, and I am just completely perplexed about it. I don't understand, and maybe I'm missing something. I guess I would have to ask the question, what is it that these people have missed this year? In my opinion, as far as our leadership goes, they've had more opportunities to lead, more opportunities to be strong and to deliver the messages. I would say our current president is probably the most well-known president I have ever had because she is we implemented these every other week videos where we talk about, PPP loans and forgiveness and changes and unemployment insurance and what's happening with our schools and all of that. And she and I do them together. I have a great video editor on staff, thank goodness. And we produce them. And so she's in front of way more people than she would have been normally. We also do Member Connect happy hours. These are every other week or every 3 weeks. And we've had the city manager on one of them. We've had we just did one with healthcare professionals. We did one with school superintendents. So and she's the face, she's the visible person. And so she's had a lot more exposure. She's had certainly a lot of challenges and she's risen to the occasion. I cannot imagine a reason for repeating that leadership role, unless maybe, and I really don't know, I just would love to hear the conversation because I want to know what is it they missed out on. Now, if it is traveling, I understand. I get it. That's their thing. They love that. And some of them don't get an opportunity to attend NAR meetings normally. And when they are being paid to be there by their association, yes, that's wonderful. So my solution to that is send them next year, but don't make them president 2 years in a row. It's a precedent setting event. I don't, you change, what did you do? Change your bylaws to accommodate this. And then what happens next year? We may still be in this situation way into next year. So then do they get another year? I'm just confused.
I
Sorry.
can jump in because I'm on the other spectrum, Rebecca.
Go ahead. That's what this is all about.
Yeah. So yeah, our board made the decision to extend the term of the officers, and it does, but for none of the reasons that you mentioned. It wasn't because they missed out on anything in particular. It's two reasons. One, because I believe that, because we believed when the decision was made that this thing is not ending in 2020. I mean, we will be going into 2021, deep into 2021. We just found out our county is planning on social distancing protocols until through 2022, possibly through 2025. So a vaccine is not going to change things. So we looked at what is the strongest leadership team that we have that has experience in this area that can help carry us through into next year. And we don't, so the leadership isn't just the president. It's a very horizontal model. So it is a true leadership team. It is the past president, the current president, president-elect, treasurer. If I meet with one, I meet with all of them. They are all in the know and can step in and fill each other's shoes at any given time. What we have is we have two officers, new officers this year coming in who need some extra love, who are fine in the role that they have. I won't say they've stumbled along the way. I think they've got their feet wet and they're getting more comfortable with it on the technical side. But it's the other cultural values that we have that that they haven't quite embraced fully. And what they're missing it's not so much, yeah, it's a trip to DC or it's a trip to Chicago. It's the relationship. It's the, like, I can have a great conversation with four of you, but it's not going to be the same as if I am sitting with you at lunch at the leadership summit and we get to talk and get to know each other. And so when it's time for that difficult conversation, like, well, Rebecca, I noticed you're struggling with this. You're going to be open to, okay, I trust Trisha. I'm getting, I've got to know her in a different way. That's what's missing. And sending them it doesn't matter sending them next year. Sending the current president next year doesn't give you anything if they're now the past president. So that's why we did it. It was, and I don't think I think this is one of those examples where a solution is unique to the individual association and to the people and to the time. So this may be terrible for some associations. I know some AEs who are, counting the days until their leadership is gone. I have great leadership. They've done an amazing job, but I think some of them they're struggling in their own business, with their own families, with, everything that COVID means to them. So we don't have them 100%. This gives them an opportunity to lead us next year when I think our budgets are going to be challenged, when the housing market is going to be hit in a different way, to have a strong leadership team. So that's the flip side of the coin.
Well, this is so great because I didn't ask this question before, so I didn't know where we would land. And Jean, kind of, I guess if everything falls in place, yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
I just want to say I can absolutely see Trisha's side of that, and because she's dealing with a whole different, it seems like a whole different culture where there's nobody who's going to be upset about that because they work more of a team, and I love that. I am fortunate that I know all of my leaders extremely well. They've worked with me for a long time, so there's no sense that we've not gotten to know each other, and I can see how that would be a challenge. So I can see both sides, and I'm sure it's different for everyone.
Can I also say what's important in this is that we don't shut off opportunities for new leadership to grow. So what we've done is we have created sort of a 2-day leadership summit at the local level. It is an 8-month, twice a month. There is a 1-hour module, and it's open to the board of directors, every chair, every vice chair, and to the candidates who ran for office and didn't win, because we hope they're going to run again, so that they will have this training opportunity that we never could have done before. We've got more people who are interested in leadership, ironically, than we've ever had.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing that around the country. Gene, are you the middleman here? Are you kind of in between, or what are your thoughts on the extension in particular, it sounds like, of leadership terms or changes, alterations given the COVID circumstances?
Yeah, again, kind of still being a little bit of the new kid on the block here at Ori, Colorado, as I'm, bonding and learning about our board little by little every day. I think I was fortunate, and Clint, you probably are more astute to this than I am, since this is your backyard as well. But a little different situation probably for us here was that the chairman of our board actually kind of had to step into this CEO role for about 6 months. And he did an absolute fabulous job.
I bet he had no clue what he was doing when he stepped in. It's like, this is hard enough. And then, oh yeah, can we just throw a pandemic on top of that?
Yeah, it was, so he's, I think he definitely got his baptism by fire, probably a little bit through that. But I have to say he handled it with dignity and grace. There were certain things that the board wanted to accomplish, and I will have to say they actually accomplished things during that time with that. And I think that always leads to great leadership at your board, but it also, I think it's an attribute and to your teams that we get our pleasure to work with every day. Our teams, our staffs, that they stepped up. And I will tell you that the executive team here took a great leadership role and kind of stepped into that and really helped the board and do those things. And there were some big things, that we're doing. They're working on a data share agreement. They were working on launching a new app. We're relocating our office space. So he had a few things on his plate and did that. So I think that I'm probably a little bit, and I think every organization is unique in its own way. And I think every real estate market has its own heartbeat, if that makes sense, of how it is. There's so many commonalities and so many similarities between us all, but there's always those little caveats that we have. I'm always looking, so I'll kind of take it from, my previous CEO position, and also, I have been a director and a chairman of an MLS. So I was on the board of Trend, was chairman of Trend MLS, and then was vice chair of Bright MLS. So I've kind of sat in the seat as well. And I think that for me, there's always a blend between, you always want new ideas and new leadership to be one to come in, and you want to help kind of work with them to get them to those positions as well, and kind of groom them to come in. At the same token, it's important to have consistency as well, that you can see those, some of the history that's there. So some continuity on your board is important too. Personally, for me, I was chair of Trend for 3 years, sitting on that board. So, I was there for that. But then I think it also goes to the character of your leadership. And I think we all have to be grown-ups, and we have to know when it's time for us to step away. And there is that time that we know that, we've done it, but we have to allow the next phase to come into there. And I always use this analogy, and I stole it from someone because I'm not that smart to probably think it up myself, but always kind of keep in mind that there's a reason that the front windshield of a car is bigger than a rearview mirror. And I think it's important that, we always, as leaders, whether we're in those director roles or in our leadership of here today, that we always want to try to look ahead to things. And yeah, we want to glance in the rearview mirror to kind of see maybe some of the historic perspective, but it's important to keep evolving every year and allow those new ideas to come in from this piece. I think, you mentioned something, Clint, about, we only got 25% done or something like that of what our strategic plan was. I think with the strategic, what this environment we're in today, it's really, for me, it's helped me become laser focused on what really is important. And sometimes they come in and everyone has their little pet peeves they want to get done, like, oh, I think this or that. But I think what this has done is allowed us to become really focused on what is important to our organizations, what's important to our subscribers and members. And I think it's really, in some ways, helped us just catapult our industry because we've really got laser focused on a lot of great things, I think, now. And so I think that's it. And sometimes, the noise on the outside has kind of been able to move away because we've had to focus, we've had to make quick decisions. And so I think that's, and you need that leadership to want to do that. They have to know that we have to be nimble today. If this hasn't taught us anything, we have to be nimble. And also I think part of this too is that we have to get past the optics. And what I mean past the optics is, and I think it was probably a change for us all, that the optics is going into the office doesn't mean I'm working any harder than me sitting at my home office working. And as we all said at the start of this conversation, we're working harder probably and longer. Before I could stick my head in someone's office and ask them that quick question, well, now I get on the video with them and it's an hour later. I'm like, doing that, but we're accomplishing other things when we get there. So I think some of the optics of this thinking that bricks and mortar are the foundation of who we are. It's not. I think it's the skill set. It's a great characters. It's a great leadership that has evolved, and we can do that anywhere. Whether it's at Lake Tahoe, you're absolutely right. We can still be effective and efficient in everything that we do every day. I think that takes a lot of trust. I think trust is something that has come through this as well. That we have to trust each other.
Certainly you put a lot of that trust to the test. To Tricia's point and Rebecca's point of these relationships that are oftentimes microwaved in terms of the level of trust that you have to attain with your leadership in such a turn cycle. And so that is a skill that every AE, I think, has to learn and learn it quickly. Otherwise, year-to-year changeover can be very, very challenging. I want to follow up on that idea of laser focus. And I was talking to a leadership group back in January, obviously prior to all of this. And they asked me to do kind of it's a 2020 thing. Let's look forward 10 years. And what's the association look like in 10 years? And for me, it was interesting because I tried to challenge my own thinking about how to, strategically create an organization. And my sense has been always to have kind of 3 core services or 3 core competencies. But as I really started looking at that, I started asking the question, what if we really became hyper-focused and we almost created micro competencies? And so what if we chose one thing to really focus on as an association and we just own that space? That's something we've never thought of because we're always trying to be all things to everyone. And for me, I try to boil that down into, 3 kind of pillars to work from, whether it be MLS or association. But it may be that we need to intentionally evolve that. And because of what we've seen over the last few months, in terms of our strategic focus, becoming more hypersensitive to issues related to advocacy and education, because to me, that's been the clear focus over the last few months. And that hasn't meant that we've removed the networking component, as you had mentioned, Rebecca. It's still cooked into it, but it's almost an outcropping of advocacy and education. It just keeps coming back to that. And I would think that in some cases where education isn't even that strong because of all the competition, you could be an association that really your entire focus was just advocacy and everything you do goes after that. And I think that's a departure from what most have considered before. I don't know what your thoughts are there. And so this is coming back to that conversation of looking at your strategic plan moving forward. What type of evolution do you see? Because I see it as an evolution, not a pivot, because a pivot means that we move quickly away from something. And I think your strategic planning should have been solid enough that we don't need to pivot away from it. We're actually moving towards what we know but works best. And I'll just throw that out there, whoever wants to jump in.
I hope that we can take the word pivot and delete it from our vocabulary forever. Because some of you, I don't know, the gentlemen on this call may not know what I'm talking about, but the ladies might. Do you remember when you were a little girl and you maybe had, or a friend had, a music box, and you opened the lid of the music box and there was a ballerina, and the ballerina would rotate and constantly pivot, but she never left that one spot. That's what I think we have to be really cautious about when we go into strategic planning. We hear, leadership or members say, yeah, we need to pivot. Well, I don't think we do need to pivot, because the concept of pivoting is you're staying in one place. You're just changing your position. And I don't think that's healthy. I think that we've demonstrated a different concept, and I call it a kairos moment. And kairos is an ancient Greek word for time. So there's two Greek words for time, chronos and kairos. And chronos is like sequential time, chronological. Kairos is this concept of that perfect moment in time when you have an opportunity to make a decision to do something different. And I think that's where we are now. We're not in pivot moments, we're in chronos. And that's what we have to embrace, is that this is the opportune time to do something different, to think differently, to go in different directions, to take risks. So when we're looking at our strategic planning, I'm banning the P word, and we can only focus on those moments in time that we may never have again. And okay, so now I'm on a rant. My other pet peeve is the term new normal. I hate it. I am so sick of it, because normal means going back to an old standard. And I think we're beyond that. I think the silver linings of COVID are the things that Jean's talked about, and then Clint's talked about, and Rebecca's talked about, opportunities we never had in the past and couldn't have done because we were in the current normal. Well, I don't want to go back. I think we've got to look at this as, the dawn of a new era, the dawn of a new age, the dawn of a new day. This is an opportunity for a renaissance for our industry. And if we keep using these old terms or terms laden with a meaning that I don't think we really want, I don't personally want, we got to, words matter. We got to start thinking about the direction that we're moving to. And if I can go back to my committees and my leadership and say, this is a new era and a renaissance. So what does that renaissance look like for us? So it's not specific, Clint, to what you're saying, like, let's focus on just one competency. I don't think we can do that with core standards, because we may have a laser focus on one.
That's the question, though, just because, again, and no offense, and I understand the purpose of core standards, but just because it itself exists doesn't mean it can't shift and evolve too with what the real focus and purpose of the organization is. I mean, look at the evolving nature of diversity and inclusion that NAR is exploring, and we're at T360 taking on that challenge too, and Rebecca's challenging sustainability through these moments, and so I think there has to be an openness at especially at the pace setter, at the bar setting level of NAR to not just do it the core standards, because that's what they always were too. I think that if generally speaking, we see a movement amongst the locals, at some point NAR's got to respond to the local activities, not just dictate what they should be.
Well, I love Jean's phrasing of, that every area has a different heartbeat. So what works in one area could be a disaster in another area. And I think that being nimble and flexible. So I wouldn't want to tie the association to, we're going to be an expert, or our main competency is going to be education. Because now we may be faced with 100 different rent control, eviction moratorium, all sorts of California, the things
look, if I was running the world, I would just tell the associations primarily to switch over and become what they've shown themselves to be over the last 6 months, which is an advocacy-based organization that then informs the education that you deliver, the networking that you offer. I think your arrow should be pointed towards advocacy at all times. That's just my personal opinion.
So if we had one arrow, it would be member experience.
So if I could chime in on that, advocacy is huge right now in our state and in our area. You know, we ensured that real estate was an essential business in our state. That was huge. Um, the advocacy that's necessary right now for rebuilding the economies of our communities is huge. We have definitely put a huge emphasis on being at the table for a multitude of community groups that are working on opening schools, rebuilding the city's economy, looking at new structures for how to fund necessities in the communities. That those are places that we are really strong in inserting ourselves, because it's protecting our members' business. So, but the other thing, back to kind of what Trisha's talking about, is what we really decided early on in the pandemic is that we wanted a culture of caring. We wanted to be the entity that is primarily caring for them and their issues and their business. And we did that in a lot of different ways, where, you know, we just told them every opportunity there was for them to receive assistance, financial assistance. And we made sure that we had people available to talk them through those opportunities. So, you know, I really think that, yes, advocacy is huge, but I don't think you can get away from, you know, all of the other member benefits and assistance and support that quite frankly members focus on. They're laser focused on that. What are you doing for me? So I think there's a balance. I do think education is going to be a real interesting down the road. A lot of us really depend on being that entry point for our members for education. And, you know, how does that look now where the delivery is quite different? We hope that our state's way behind, by the way, on allowing for virtual learning. And they've only done it because of the pandemic. And our challenge now is that we're worried they're going to roll back all of the ability for us to deliver that. So those are just some things that we're laser focused on, being at the table in the community and showing that we care about the members and, you know, pointing them in the right direction.
Well, what I'm hearing is one or two things instead of 50 things. And again, I'm not dictating. I mean, I have a personal proclivity, but to me, we've really got to look at that hyper focus, and Gene in particular to the MLS, and work down, because we're going to jump out of here a little early today because a number of us have to get to our next meetings here. But you know, in terms of the laser focus in the MLS, I mean, again, there's been real clarity around where the value proposition is over the last few months, you know, in relation to data and technology. You know, those two things are uber powerful, and moving forward, as Rebecca says, understanding real estate's place in the overall economic system is going to be, in my worldview, exponentially more and more valuable. And so if we can take control again and be hyper focused around the data, as well as then some of the technologies that proliferate it, those two things again have been clear winners in the MLS space over the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And first, I want to take my hat off to all the associations, leadership, AE, CEOs, because they did play a huge, vital role in helping communicate to the members and the advocacies toward, you know, the governor's directives that were coming out, and having kind of a seat at that table to talk about that. I commend all of you for doing that, because you did help. I think we're truly essential in keeping real estate essential, because that was, I think, the first domino that really had the fall. You know, I definitely have some friends around the country, and in some states, real estate was not essential. And it definitely has caused a lot of heartache. There's no doubt about that piece of it. You know, I think that I'd like to think that all of our stock has kind of risen over the past 5 to 6 months, as you said, Clinton. I know back at my CEO position back in Northern Nevada, when this happened, you know, I went to our team, and the first thing I said is, you know, we have to be the rock for them now. we have to be their support system as the MLS, to our members, and that we are going to have to lead with compassion. We are going to have to lead with clarity, and as the technology piece is, we had to, quickly, both our vendors, and I think the vendors deserve some credit in this area as well. They really stepped up. I think probably one of the biggest things was open houses, and how we had to go to live streaming very quickly because many of our states, as you know, you cannot have a physical open house there. So I think the things that technologically that all MLSs had to do, and vendors, I think, as I said, there's a collaboration that became very strong between vendor, MLSs, associations. Definitely, I think that that piece of it was there, and it forced us. And you kind of mentioned it, that I think change happens between evolution and revolution. It's either one happens. This was probably a blend that we happened over the past 6 months. It actually was a little bit of a revolution that we had to deal with and act quickly and decisively to that piece. And I think the leaders that did that, but you had to do it with compassion and understanding that piece. And, I know one of the things I talked a lot about both here and in my former CEO position, but I actually just did it yesterday to our customer care. I tried to let them walk in a day of a real estate broker owner, agent, and what fear they had of what could they lose? Could they lose their businesses because of this, and those sort of things. And so I think, understanding that, I think we quickly got that and worked with them. I would like to think we have done a few more raving fans now than we had before. And I do believe we do have raving fans.
The trick is to then capture that and move that forward. And I don't want to cut you off, Gene, but I do want to kind of do a round robin here before we get out of here.
Absolutely.
And I'm with you. I think that we've had that blend of revolution, evolution. And my thought is intentional evolution moving forward to capture the spirit, the energy, the importance of the work that we're all doing now is really, really important. And that's what I want to see thrust into the strategic planning moving forward. Don't worry about pivoting or spinning in circles, as Tricia points out. It's how do we take this and intentionally evolve those things that we do best. What would you guys leave as your kind of last comment here? And again, we're just down to a few minutes because of respect everybody's time. Rebecca, I'll start with you. Just kind of that parting words of wisdom. And you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for including me. Here's what I would say my last comment will be. I have never, and I've been doing this a while. This is my 4th association. I've been over 30 years. I have never felt so connected to my AE community and all of the resources that they can provide. We all were scrambling, especially in the beginning, for policies on, remote work for our employees, HR issues, unemployment issues, you name it. We were struggling, reopening plans, closing plans, policies for when people come in the building to, getting their temperature checked, wearing masks, all of that. And it was just such a strong community that we shared alike, and we were able to create incredible documents that, frankly, my board of directors couldn't believe how quickly we were able to do. And I just kept saying, well, you know what, we all share, and why would I recreate something that Tricia's already done? And it just was incredible. So I just want to thank all the AEs out there, and to just anybody who's new into the business, to invite them to make those connections and create those relationships, because they've been invaluable during this year.
Indeed. Tricia?
My parting thought would be, I think what we already know about our position, our role, and that is, as an AE, we're the consistent face and voice and presence. And I think it's up to us to set the tone for the whole association. And, both Gene and Rebecca used the word compassion. It's in our culture statement. I think that there's the what you do, there's the why you do it, and then there's the how you do it. And we can get the technical stuff and we can share information, but what Rebecca can do and Jean can do and what they do is they demonstrate compassion in leadership. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we can do as AEs is set the tone for that, because drama disappears in the face of compassion. And so that's my parting thought is be that leader for compassionate leadership for your membership and for your board of directors and your staff.
Awesome. Gene, I know you've got to run here quickly. And just last part.
Just quickly, it kind of goes on you, though. I think there was a saying at one time, says, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I hope that this crisis that we've been through, as you said, Clint, I think you hit it, let's use it to continue to move us forward. I think also what this has done is this always focus on what makes us similar, not what makes us different. And we find that we all have the challenges. They may be different in little ways, but we're all facing the same thing. And I think this is where, from the MLS side, maybe, that it really has to help us focus on being high tech blended with high touch. And how do we blend those every day together? So I guess those are my parting words.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Go out, I guess, get back to doing the online business. This is probably the first of 12 Zoom calls today, so you're welcome. I had so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it. Thanks to all my colleagues. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. Super appreciate you. Of course, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to us. We're obviously in a position where we do a lot of strategic planning through T360. And so if you're considering that and looking at different ways to intentionally evolve, we'd love to visit with you about that, as well as, as was mentioned, we do a good bit of membership survey work too. So just a little plug in there as we leave you. Elsewise, go out, enjoy your day. Thanks so much. We appreciate all you are and all that you do. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.